Hilchas Meiser Sheini v'neter Ravai. Hapoida Meisre la'atzmei. Someone that's paid his own Meiser. How is it his own? Ben Shu Shalei. It's Pasha that it was his Meiser, knows he was mafreshet from his own produce, from his own field. Or Ben Shenafle B'Yerusha, he yashened the Meiser Sheini. Or Ben Shenitle B'Tivle Matana. Someone gave him the Tevel B'Matana, K'mesha B'Yarnu, and he was mafresh from that Tevel Meiser Sheini. In other words, if someone will give him the Meiser Sheini, someone was mafresh Meiser Sheini, and he'll give him the Meiser Sheini, that Meiser Sheini doesn't become his. Because since Meiser Sheini is Momen Goveya, so no one has a right not to give it, not to sell it. So Mele, it remains the other person's. Elamai, he's giving you rishus to use it. Now, if you go ahead and you want to be paid it, so you're being paid to something you're allowed to use, that's not called being mafresh Meiser Sheini. You're not being paid the Meiser Sheini Shalei. It's not Kanam Meiser V'Chemish. So the tzir that should be shalei is either it was from your produce, or you yashened it, or you were mafresh it from someone else's produce, but you received it as a present while it was still tevel. So then is areza mesav olav chemish, which means, what does chemish mean? Im hoy yeshav dalit is then nesen chamisha shnam v'im goel yigal ish mimaisrei is chamishisa yesev olav. And the taish of chamisha means a chemish mulabar. Together with the hisofa, it's a chemish of everything. Now that's a ish. For isha shepadis meiser sheini shelo la'atzma. If you have a woman that owns meiser sheini and she goes ahead and she wants to be paid to the meiser sheini, is eina misifa chemish. This din is only by ish, not by isha. Pi Shmuel lamdu ish mi meisrei v'le isha. V'chein im pada pidyin peidas ha-meiser la'atzmei is also meisav chemish. What does it mean? Pada pidyin peidas ha-meiser. There's someone had peidas meiser, and then he went ahead and was paid that peidas ha-meiser. Now normally with that money, he's supposed to go and buy peidas in Shalayim. What happens instead of buying peidas in Shalayim, he owns peidas, he owns himself peidas, and he says that this money should be mechul on this peidas. Because he's being mechal the money on the peidas. So over here also there's a din that he has to be meisav chemish. In other words, the peidas have to be worth a fifth more than the value of the money, a fifth more than the value of the money. That's the word. V'chein and pod the pidyon peidas ha-meiser la'atz meisav chemish. In other words, if a person is going to take that pidyon, and he's pidyon meiser is the money, if he's going to be paid it, and he's going to be paid it on top of other money, so we're going to learn later, that's ein derech pidyon bekach. And since ein derech pidyon bekach, so memeli it can be meisav chemish. So the only tzir of pada pidyon peidas meiser means he took the peidas. He took the money. In other words, he had meiser sheni, and then he was paid at meiser sheni with money. So he has money lying. And then he says that this money which is lying should be mechulul on different peidas, which is lying also, which is his peidas in Yerushalayim. So then the din is that he's meisav chemish. That's this din. V'chein pada pidyon peidas ha-meiser la'atz meisav chemish. Halacha gimel pada peidas meisrei. He was paid the peidas of his meiser, and he was meisav chemish. So in other words, he did the original pidyon, and he was meisav chemish. And now v'chazer upada ha-pidyon la'atz mipam shniya. And now he's going, and this pidyon of the meiser, which is this money that he was paid to the meiser, he wants to be paid like he spoke on halacha beis. Pada pidyon peidas ha-meiser, and he's being meisav chemish. So the din is v'chazer upada ha-pidyon la'atz mipam shniya is meisav chemish sheni ala keren b'vat. However, ve'eni meisav chemish ala chemish. On the original chemish that he was meisav, on the peidas he doesn't have to be meisav chemish. In other words, he's being paid of the chemish. So he has to be meisav the amount of the chemish. Mashal the tzir that he started off with peidas that were worth 4, and lepeil he was paid of the peidas with the chemish, so there's 5. So he has 5 now. Now he's being paid this 5, the 5 zuzim. He's being paid those 5 zuzim on peidas. He's being paid the pidyon peidas ha-meiser. So now he has to have peidas which are worth the 5, obviously, plus a quarter of the 4, another quarter of the 4, which is another 1. So Mamela it's going to have to be 6, but it's not going to be. If it would be meisav chemish also on the 5, so he would have to be meisav 6 1/4, because he's being meisav. In other words, on the 5, 1 plus a quarter. Mashenkin, since he's only being meisav chemish on the original 4, so Mamela his pidyon of the pidyon peidas meiser is going to be not 6 1/4, but just 6. Will be the 5 that he has, the pidyon plus the chaimish, and then a chaimish for the original keren. Not a chaimish, there won't be a chaimish for this chaimish. That's this din. Nachamal. Halacha Gimel. Poda Peiris Meiser. He was paid the Peiris of the Meiser, and then he was Hesev chaimish. He was Mesev a chaimish to this Meiser, and now v'chazaru Poda hapidyon la'atzmei pam shniya. Now he's being chazer again this pidyon ha'Meiser. So his Mesev chaimish Sheini ala keren b'vad. For the keren which he's being paid in now, he has to be Mesev a chaimish. On the chemish that he's being mesev, he has to be mesev the amount of the chemish, but he doesn't have to be mesev the chemish on the chemish. Like we're saying, in other words, he started off with 4, and then he was mesev a chemish. Now he has 5, and now when he's being paid the pidyon hameiser, so now it's 6 because it's not. It's only it's the 5 plus a fifth of the original 4. Halacha daled meiser sheini she'im b'chumshi shava pruta, which means together. The Meiser Sheini is not worth 4 prutas. So if you'll be paid it and you'll add a chaimish, so the chaimish is not going to be a pruta. Meiser Shein b'chum sheshava pruta is any meiser olav chaimish. There's no chi of chaimish. Chaimish is only if the chaimish is going to be lefachis a pruta. Now we learned before that Meiser Shein b'chum sheshava pruta is not really chayiv and pidyon on a deraisa level. It's only chayiv on a drabonadik level. Whereas on a deraisa level, Meiser Sheini that doesn't have arba prutas, which means ein b'chum sheshava pruta, you're allowed to eat outside Yerushalayim. There's no din that you have to bring it to Yerushalayim, only if it's a Meiser Sheini that's worth lefachis shava pruta, arba prutas, which yesh b'chum shepruta. It's just that the Achreinim bring, the Ramah brings from the Shittim Kobetzes and all that, from the Mikdash David, that they're saying that this din, that if it's ein b'chum shepruta, it's only a drabonon, that's only legabi the isur of eating it outside Yerushalayim. But the Gabriel Marshal, other dinim of Meiser Sheini, which has to be eaten, not allowed to be eaten betumi, and allowed to eat aninos, and those the din of Kedushas Meiser Sheini, that din still applies, even if it's ein b'chum shepruta. It's only legabi this din that you need pidyon in order to eat it outside Yerushalayim. That's only on a derabbanan din, and legabi that taka the din is you can be paid it without being meisav achemish. V'chein Meiser she'ein dom of you. So we're speaking about this Meiser Sheini, Nachamol she'ein b'chum shepruta, so the din is you don't have to be Meisav Achemish. Now we're saying Meiser she'ein dom of Yuduim. You have Meiser, it's not clear how much it's worth. And vice versa, even with Mumchin, you're not going to know, you don't know exactly how much it's worth. Is Daye she'yei marhu v'chum she'ei mechulul ala selazeh. And it's brought down that the seller, we're assuming that it's certainly not worth more than a seller. The question is, if how much worth is worth less than a seller, and therefore it should be the chaimish. So the din is legabi the chi of pidyon. You have to be paid it. You know, you can be paid it, and you're not allowed to be paid it b'less mishavia. I mean, b'diavad it works even if it's pachas mishavia. But lechatchila you're supposed to be paid it b'shavia. But again, the chaimish is like that's not really a chiyuv legabi the pidyon. It's like. On that you could say Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya. So since it's not clear that I owe the chaimish to the money of Meiser Sheini, it's not a regular din of Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya. Normally we speak of Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya only on the level of 2 people. Over here we're talking about Hegdish. In other words, you have Meiser Sheini, and Meiser Sheini you have to be paid it. The question is, do you have to also add a chaimish? So it's not clear that you have to add a chaimish, because it could be the seller already has the chaimish. So there's this musig that since it's a Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya, that's how the Ramah understands pshat. That since it's a musig Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya, so I'm not mechuyev to be to add the chaimish. It's a shtickle mechudish, because normally you would say Amitz Mechaver Olav Araya is din imamnas mamish. Over here we're talking about a din chaimish legabe Meiser Sheini. But I'll call upon, that's how he says. V'chein lachamal v'chein Meiser she'ein dom of Yiduyim. It's not clear how much the Meiser is worth. And vice tuyis, we're saying that it's certainly not worth more than a seller, but could be it's worth less than a seller. And in the seller there's the chaimish. Is daye sheyomer hu v'chumshei mechul ala seller zeh. So he's saying this seller is taking care, sai of the value of the Meiser Sheini, and sai of the chaimish. Maybe it's really, could be it's not really taking care of the chaimish. But again, even if it's not taking care of the chaimish, but sof kol sof, it's taking care of the value of the Meiser Sheini, and memela is beseder. Again, it doesn't really say clearly in the Rambam that it's talking about that is definitely taking care of the value, but that's how you have to learn pshat. V'chol Meiser Who Eine Pideu Mishalei. The whole musig of Chomish is only it's his Meiser Sheini and it's his money. Mashenkin, if it's not his Meiser Sheini or it's not his money, he's being paid with someone else's money, so then that's not called the Chi of Chemish. V'chol Meiser Shu Eine Pideu Mishalei Eine Meiser Chemish. Meiser Sheini Shul Demai is also Eine Meiser Olav Chemish. So B'chlos we're learning that there's a din you have to, if a person paid the Meiser Sheini Shalei, he has to be Meiser Chemish. That's only by Ish and not by Isha. That's one din. And then there's a din if a person is paid the pidyon of Meiser Sheini, he also has to be Meiser Chemish. But he only has to be Meiser Chemish on the original Karen. He doesn't have to be Meiser Chemish on the Chemish of the pidyon Meiser Sheini. That was another din that we learned. But again, when is there a chiv of Isafas Chemish? Then we learned that Meiser Sheini she'ein b'chum sheshava pruta. There's also no din of Chemish. And then there's Meiser Sheini she'ein dom of Yeduyim. So there's no hechrech to give clearly a Chemish. You could say that hu v'chum she is mechulul al asela azeh. And then in order to be paid the Meiser Sheini, the shechai v'chum she has to be side that the Meiser Sheini is shalei, and side that the money is shalei. And then there's another din that Meiser Sheini shel d'mai is also not mechuyev in Chemish. Halachei hapoid the Meiser Sheini. B'hoyulei Meiser Sheini acher shalei niftas. He was already paid the Meiser Sheini. He took the money. He was paid the Meiser Sheini. And there's other Meiser Sheini shalei niftas. Is ein main b'chum sheshava pruta. So in other words, we're talking about a little amount of Meiser Sheini which doesn't have 4 prutas. Memela ein b'chum sheshava pruta. So chances are, the thing is like this: when a person is paid the Meiser Sheini, and he's paid the Meiser Sheini b'yeser midomov, so it's not that the whole domim become nitvas and kedushas Meiser Sheini. The domim can't be nitvas and kedushas Meiser Sheini for more than the Meiser Sheini was worth. So Memela, if a person takes money and he's paid the Meiser Sheini, like the Rambam Sung clearly, when a person takes money and he's paid the Meiser Sheini, and that Meiser Sheini wasn't worth as much as this money, so not all of this money is really a pidyon of Meiser Sheini, only the part of the money which is equivalent to what the Meiser Sheini was worth. So now we could assume that if a person was paid the Meiser Sheini with money, and now he has other Meiser Sheini, which ain't b'chum shechamisha, so we could assume that in this money that he was paid at the first Meiser Sheini, there's probably left over enough money to be able to pay also this Meiser Sheini, which ain't b'chum shechamisha, which is such a little amount. So that's what he's saying. Pay the Meiser Sheini. If the other Meiser Sheini shalei nivda is a very minimal amount, ein b'chum sheshava pruta, is dayish sheyemar hu v'chum shey mechul ala Meiser Sheinis. Why? If a person is not mitzamtzum meisa, so Mela, when he was paid the original Meiser Sheini, we could assume that he left over some money as well, at least enough for less than 4 prutas and whatever the chaimish is. And Mela, so therefore he could be moisiv the pidyon of this Meiser Sheini also on the first. Now the Meiser is, we learned earlier that if a person has Meiser Sheini which ein b'chum sheshava pruta, so he doesn't have to give chaimish. So you have to understand, why does the Rambam say dayish sheyemer hu v'chum shei mechul ala Meiser Sheinis? L'chura, since we're dealing with Meiser Sheini she'ein b'chum sheshava pruta, so l'chura there's no chumshi. So what do you need? Hu v'chum shei mechul ala Meiser Sheinis. So the Mari Korka says that the pshat is because since over here he's not adding special money for this pidyon Meiser Sheini, so therefore they were machmer. It's like whereas normally when a person's taking money for Meiser, which ain't b'chum shei pruta, so you don't have to be Meiser v'chaimish. Mashengan over here, since he's not taking new monies, he's only saying that it's mechul on that money of earlier. So therefore they were machmer on him that he should mention the chaimish as well. He shouldn't be mekel, and memele he'll be mekel completely with this Meiser. So therefore they say no, hu v'chum shei mechul al Meiser Sheinis. Halacha vav. Hapoide Meiser b'yeser al doma v'linitpus ha'tesus l'Meiser. That's really the yisod of the previous halacha. In other words, the tesus was a nitpus l'Meiser, so mele that tesus remains chulin, and therefore when he has no Meiser Sheini, he can be paid on that extra a bit in the money which was a nitpus in Meiser Sheini. Halacha zayin. Balabayis Eimer Besela, Ve'acher Eimer Besela. He has Meiser Sheini, and he wants to be paid it. He's offering a seller for the Meiser Sheini, and there's someone else that's also offering a seller. Now we learned earlier that we brought from the Avon Ozel that he says that this din, that is a Shittim Kubetzes Nerchen, that he says that that you really, someone else can't come and be paid the Yom Meiser Sheni unless you give him permission. So it's hard to understand. In other words, you're giving him permission to be paid the Meiser Sheni, or else he wouldn't be able to have any sutrit, he wouldn't be able to have any shaykhs to this Meiser Sheni. But on the other end, he's like, in other words, you're arguing who's going to be paid the Meiser Sheni. You're offering up a seller. Is Meiser, you're not being makbid that you're dafka being the one that should be paid the year. Saying you're offering a seller. Now that person, you don't mind if he does it, and you don't mind if he offers more, so you'll be maskim. So that's what's going on. Balabai is ema b'seller. Va'acher ema b'seller. The other person is also saying he's willing to give a seller, and the reason why that person can be paid is because you're being maskim that he should be paid there. So the din is balabayis kedem. So we say no, the balabayis comes first. Mipnei shu meisav chemish. Now lechura, the word balabayis comes first means lechura the being mizvakeach. In other words, he says no, I want to do it. He says no, I want to do it. So we're saying since he's going to add a chemish, so he could do it. But lechura, I mean, if he says he wants to do it, the balabayis wants to do it, so he could say I don't want you to do it. I mean, if the only reason why the other person could do it is because I'm giving him permission to do it, so I don't have clearly the tzir over here. It was balabayis ema b'selah, v'echad ema b'selah. The din is balabayis kedem mipnei shu meisav chemish. I mean, the balabayis has the right to say that the other person shouldn't do it. You don't have to have an excuse why the balabayis is the one that has the right. Al kopon balabayis ema b'selah, v'acher ema b'selah upruta. So then is a acher kedem mipnei shu meisav alakern. So even though lepel, if the balabayis is going to do it, so he's going to end up giving more because he's going to be meisav achemish. So we'd rather be Mesav on the Karen, even though we're losing out on the Chemish, than being Mesav on the Chemish. And we see that you could be Mairim on the Chemish. Halacha ches, mutter laharim al pidin Meisa, Ketzad, ema lebnei lebiti agdelim, ula'avdi ha'ivri, which they have their own rishus, halacha is hamoyis ha'elu, updei lecha behen ha'meisa. Because here's this money is going to become your money, and be paid this Meisa for yourself. I'm giving you permission to be paid this Meisa. So kedei shel yesav chevish shel mamela. If I'm giving you permission to be paid this Meisa, and if you're being paid the Meisa, you're being paid the Meisa for yourself with the money that I gave you. So then you don't have to be mesav chevish. It's my Meisa. Don't tell them go be paid for me this Meisa, because then it comes out I'm being paid the Meisa. It's just I'm being paid the Meisa through them. They're doing something bishlichusi. In other words, here's the money is going to be yours, and be paid for me with your money, with your money, is any mesav chemish. In other words, if he says p'dei li bohen, and he wasn't clearly makna the money, so I'm saying I'm giving you money, and the purpose of the money is to be paid for me, for my maisa, so it's still my money. You're being paid the my maisa with my money from me, so it means I'm being paid the maisa. Mashenkin, if you're being paid with your money for me, or you're being paid with my money for yourself, so either way, it comes out that there's no chiyuv of chemish. Before we were talking about b'nei ubiti agdelim, which they have their own rishus, but I can't give it leb'nei ubiti aktanim or la'avdi v'shevchasi aknainim. Why? Mipnei sheyodam ki yodi. So in other words, it's not really theirs; it's mine. So it comes out that they're doing it for me. It's my money, and they're doing it for me. Now, Nosan l'shivchasi ivriya, he gave it to his ivriya. Now, so she is the chaktana, and ivriya is the chaktana. The question is, could the ktana be paid my meiser sheni for myself, for me? Nosan l'shivchasi ivriya is azay. Im meiser sheni zeh midivreim. If we're talking about Meiser Sheini midivreim, the Rabbanon dikum Meiser Sheini, kigein shahoyim ma'atzah Sheini nokov. So then dvarav kayomen. Why? Sha'am ivriya ktani, ve'ein hakotten zeichel lacherim el medavim shemidivreim. In other words, to go ahead and be paid the Meiser Sheini is considered I'm being zeichel lacherim. How am I being zeichel lacherim? I'm taking Meiser Sheini, which is, again, we're looking at Meiser Sheini as being something which is owned by Hegdish, and I'm being mezakeh to the bailam. So I'm going ahead and I'm taking it out of Hegdish. So I have my own money. You gave me the money. The money became mine. So now I'm going ahead and being mezakeh this Meiser Sheini for him. I'm being mezakeh this Meiser Sheini for him, for the person that gave me the money. And the money became mine. So the money could become mine. That's not a problem. But the question is, could I be mezakeh this Meiser Sheini for him? So we say that's like a gather of being mezakeh. It's So again, Meiser Sheini, normally we don't look at it as money, as a Indian of value of money. It's kilo. It's not a moment. It's not a Choshen Mishpat din l'chura. But here again, we're looking at it just like before we were saying that's like a Choshen Mishpat din, and therefore there's the din of Amitz Mechaveir Olav Arayil Legabe the Chomish. So over here also we're looking at it as a zadin that I'm being mizak. I'm taking it out of the matzav of Meiser Sheini. I'm being mizak it for the bailim. So I can't do that unless we're dealing on a Rabbanon Dika level. Sham Ivri Ektani Vein Akotten Zeichel Acherim Ela B'Davar Shumi Devreim. V'chein Mayrim. There's another way of getting out of the Chomish. V'noisen Amaiser Matonik Shut B'Tivla. He gives it away to someone else as tevel. V'Eimer HaNeisen. And then the Neisen says, Eri HaPeiris HaElu B'Chulolin Amoy Shebebayis. So mainly he's the balabas. He was the original balabas, and obviously we're talking about the person that he gave him to a matana as being maskim, because Peter, since he gave him as a matana, so the Meiser Sheini is his. So mainly he could say that this Meiser Sheini was this person is muchalolin al demoy shebebayis. Allah yudaf. Shnei achim shnei shutfim or avu bnei is the din is again pay them zelas a Meiser Sheini. This is all a way of getting out of the chemish. Kedei sheli yesav chemish. Isha shechnisa lebayla Meiser Sheini. So no, she got married, and part of the nedunya was Meiser Sheini. Is heil v'humam goveya k'mesha b'yanu is lekona bal. So no, the question. Normally she brings her assets, and the bal owns it, but the bal can't own her Meiser Sheini. Meiser Sheini the chumam goveya lefichach im pado. So if he's going to be paid, is any meis of chemish. Just like if you give a present Meiser Sheini, so the Meiser Sheini still belongs to the original owner. So al derech zeh, if someone gets married, so memela the Meiser Sheini still belongs to the original owner, to the isha. Halacha yud beis hapei the Meiser Sheini la'atzmei v'nosen sakern v'lei nosen sachemish. Is aval pi she'ein achemish ma'akev and lepel zarei neschal the chilul was chal, and it's no longer a din of Meiser Sheini, but nevertheless there's a din leyechel ad she'yitn achemish afilu b'Shabbos, because gzeira shemiyivshe v'leyitn. So the Chacham instituted a din that you're not allowed to eat Meiser Sheini until you give the chemish, because they're afraid that you're not going to give the chemish. And Mamela, even on Shabbos, with Shabbos you can't give the chemish, so Mamela you're going to end up not being able to eat the Meiser Sheini, so you cannot eat the Meiser Sheini. Allah Yid Gimel. Mois Meiser Sheini imrotza letzarfim b'din rizov kedei lahakol masoy metzarfim. Because you have silver coins, din kesef, and you want to be metzarfim for din rizov, so it should be easier to carry to Yerushalayim. Is metzarfim. V'afilu imtzirful la'atzmei. This is imtzir. It's over here the lashon is imtzirful la'atzmei. That means afilu tzirful la'atzmei. The correct lashon is ein mesav chemish. Why? She'ein zeh derech p'diyah. Because we learned before that the money of pidyon Meiser Sheini also, if you're paid it, you have to be mesav chemish. So l'chur over here, this mois Meiser Sheini, you're being metzaref for from one kesef to another kesef. So now it says, afilu tzirful la'atzmei ein zeh mesav chemish. She'ein zeh derech p'diyah. That's not derech p'diyah. Why? Because it's mois al mois. And mois al mois is not called derech p'tiyah. That's how kol ponim the Ram Maruch brings from the Rashash. That's the word. It's only mois al mois, and therefore earlier when we spoke about derech p'tiyah, it has to be mois al peiris. That's how he's learning pshat. That earlier was mois al peiris, masha'inkan mois al mois is not derech p'tiyah. It could be there's an art to think that if a person is being mechalit, in other words, over here the purpose is to be able to carry it. So it's not like he's saying, I want to exchange this money for this money. Maybe that's not called derech p'diyah. Mashenkin, if we're not dealing with carrying it, he's talking about his money, he's in Yerushalayim, and he's being machlev this money, it should be chal on this money, so maybe that would be called derech p'diyah. Could be there's a difference between exchange or derech p'diyah. I'll call upon him, he brings from the Rashash and B'Metzia that he learns that the pshat is that kesef is not called derech p'diyah. Okay. Halacha Yudalet. Hapoiret sela mimois Meiser Sheini. He's taking a sela and he's making it into prutas. Is bein b'Yerushalayim and chutz Yerushalayim. Is leid sarfenu kula b'mois necheshes. He shouldn't exchange the entire sela, that it should be necheshes. Why? Because necheshes becomes rusty and it's not good for to have so much copper coins is not so good. El b'shekel mois kesef, b'shekel mois necheshes. In other words, you should take from 1 shekel should be of kesef, a shekel of mois kesef, and 1 shekel, in those, there's 2 shkolim in a seller. So 1 shekel of the seller should be kesef, mois kesef, and the other shekel you should do mois necheshes. Mutter lechalul kesef meiser in peiris meiser ala kesef. We learned before that you're not mechal kesef al kesef. Normally you're not mechal kesef al kesef. But over here, mutter lechalul kesef meiser in peiris meiser ala kesef. You're being mechal peiris meiser ala kesef. So the you could also be mechal be mitzaref kesef meiser. Aber v'hu, that's only she who bepeiris pachas mishava dinner. You know, the peiris is not that much, so there's no dinner. So maybe you mitzaref also other coins in order to be mitzaref it and to be mechaler on a dinner. But the payers themselves were a shava dinner, so they didn't need really the mois in order to be mitzaref to have it a dinner. Is leichalim and not kesef. Yitaka shouldn't be mechal the payers with together with kesef. You should mechal the payers themselves. Dinner. So you could say, no, so we have 4 dinim, and Mamela let's be mechal on a seller. No, ain't a mechal akil al salachas. Because since you're able to take the payers and mechal on a dinner, so go ahead and be mechal on a dinner. However, aval m'hoyele chatzid dinner payers and chatzid dinner moyes, so then is mechal shneim al dinner echad. In other words, if there's not enough payers for 1 dinner, so you can mitzaref moyes. Masha'inken, if there's payers enough for 1 dinner, so then you cannot be mitzaref moyes.